How would you feel about a man who turns up at a peace conference to negotiate for a ceasefire dressed like a soldier? Do you think that is a particularly intelligent decision? Does that show good, intelligent decision making? Now, this is a toy, by the way, YouTube, but I'm using this to illustrate a point. When we saw the peace negotiation the other day between President Trump and the Americans, and Volodymyr Zelenskyy and the Ukrainian contingency, everybody else in the room realised this is the most prestigious room in the world, full of the most powerful guys. Everyone there's wearing a plush suit, even the office assistants. Shoes polished, hair coiffed, everyone looking their best. That's how you do negotiation. What does Zelenskyy turn up in? A t-shirt. A military uniform t-shirt, like a polo shirt. Now, you might say, but he's a soldier. Of course he's wearing that. He needs to be ready for battle. He has a 13-hour flight to get back to Ukraine with a stopover. And when he arrives back at home, he's just going to chuck on jeans and a t-shirt. So that tells you something which Trump's team and the president were well aware of, but I think a detail which is missed by many of my audience and possibly his audience. Zelenskyy, being a classically trained actor, that's what he was before he started being the president of Ukraine. He was a classically trained actor. He's been in short films and adverts and radio shows. He wants to give the impression to you and I and everyone else who was watching that he is in fact a brave and noble soldier, a defender of the nation of Ukraine. He's on 24-hour call just like all the other soldiers. Only he's not, is he? Because if he was on 24-hour call, he wouldn't be going 13 hours on a private jet to a peace meeting. So the reason why he is wearing that silly costume, the only way I can describe it is a costume, and not wearing a suit, is because despite that Trump knows what this guy is and about, and everyone else in the room knows what he's about, he's making a show to the camera. So despite the fact that Zelenskyy physically said he was there to sign this entry agreement, which was an agreement to immediately stop the war with a temporary ceasefire, which would have saved thousands of lives immediately. Putin had already signed it. Trump managed to somehow, some miracle, got Putin to sign it. Turning up wearing a military uniform is a clear signal to say, I'm not here for peace. And nobody saw it. Trump saw it. I saw it. I don't think a lot of people in the audience would have seen it. Because Zelenskyy is a classically trained actor. He knows how to get the tears jerking, He knows how to present his point. Because he's an actor. That's his career. He was grown into that from a young age, and his career was in acting, not politics. Now, I know there's similarities between the two, but Zelenskyy is an actor first, politician second. So, this is the way we need to look at that meeting. Zelenskyy now is not going to be trusted because he agreed to go to the meeting in order to mediate for peace between Ukraine and Russia, with Trump as a non-biased mediator. Right? He can't favour one party or the other. He has to recognise that both parties have needs and wants and will have to make concessions and compromises. That's how negotiations for peace work. So he got Putin to agree and sign to say, as soon as Zelenskyy signs, that's it, end of the war, ceasefire, immediate ceasefire. Zelenskyy turns up dressed like a soldier, shakes his head and turns his nose up, clears his nose every single time the word peace entered the discussion. Did you notice that? I watched the whole 3 hours of them discussing this, negotiations. I read all the documents beforehand. And I was so dismayed and shocked to see Zelenskyy every single time the word ceasefire, the word peace, every time Trump said we need to end this conflict now, every time he mentioned dead soldiers on both sides, Zelensky's shaking his head and crossing his arms like a petulant teenager. To the point where he became rude, and a reporter actually said to him, "President Zelenskyy, I have a question for you. Why don't you wear a suit to a peace meeting? Have you not got a suit?" Which obviously wasn't the question he intended to ask, but because of Zelenskyy's performance, i.e. he didn't want to discuss any of the points in the actual agreement. Did you notice that? Probably not if you haven't read it. The agreement specifically avoided talking about military intervention against Ukraine or Russia. It specifically avoided saying, this person's a terrorist, this person's a terrorist. It's a peace accord. It used very friendly, mediative language about both parties, and without inflaming more tensions, suggested that American companies will set up in Ukraine, and the unsaid bit is they will be protected by the military. That's how a peace agreement works. Putin said, I'm quite happy for American mining companies to be on Ukrainian ground, and I will agree not to shoot any more bullets while they are there, i.e. it's a ceasefire that Putin's agreed to. All we need to do is get Zelenskyy to agree he's going to stop shooting at the Russians, which you'd think was a no-brainer. No. Turns up in a military uniform, scoffs and turns his nose up at any mention of the word peace, questions Trump's authority and ability to get this deal done, and leaves having refused to sign it. It was ridiculous. It really was. So, in conclusion of this short video, Zelenskyy failed in his bid to get American support. The only reason it wasn't withdrawn completely after that atrocious performance is because America have will to support the Ukrainian people and to end the war. And without American backing, because we know European backing is like worthless. Sorry, it just is. They talk a big game, they do nothing. Without American backing, Ukraine would be defeated already. They would have already lost. And America doesn't want that. So Zelenskyy, like President Trump said, it's all very well him acting all tough, turning up in his military uniform, shaking his head at the idea of peace and calling Putin a terrorist at a peace meeting, i.e. suicidally stupid move. It's all very well him doing that. But his days in cabinet are now numbered because he proved on that stage that day that he cannot be trusted, he makes poor decisions, and he is not willing to compromise, despite the fact that he had a very generous offer put on the table in front of him, which would have immediately ended the war. So he doesn't want the end of the war. So the real question, which should be on everyone's lips, is who is next? Who is going to replace Zelenskyy at the end of the year, when the Ukrainian people invariably get annoyed with him for saying no to a ceasefire and constantly obliterating his own economy, when a really generous offer was on the table there, which included military support and financial aid, plus an immediate ceasefire? And he said no and produced no reasoning for this. When questioned, what did he say? He said, I'm not willing to compromise. That was his reasoning. My reasoning is I'm not willing to compromise. So, in conclusion, Zelenskyy is done as far as I'm concerned. By the end of this year, he'll be out and a new successor will be the president of Ukraine. And you can bet your last cent, whoever replaces Zelenskyy hopefully will be an actual legitimate politician and not an actor pretending to be a soldier. But whoever it is, let's hope it's someone who is willing to compromise, not hold a grudge. Despite the fact that he doesn't like Putin because they're at war, he has to realise when you're in a war, you have to negotiate with your enemy. You can't just say he's a terrorist, I want everything I want, and he's not allowed to have anything, because guess what happens? The negotiation breaks down, and then your allies pull out and you get defeated. So, that's the end of this video. Let's see what happens with Zelenskyy and his atrocious negotiation skill. Like I say, I expect now, after that complete disaster, Zelenskyy will be out by the end of the year, and hopefully his replacement will be a little bit more intelligent about the generous offers on the table from guys like President Trump. And if so, the war can be ended immediately. Like, it could have been ended there. It literally could have been over already. It could have been over now for 3 days. If not for Zelensky's arrogance and stupidity. So let's hope. Let's hope he's replaced soon with someone who is smarter than him, with a little bit more foresight, and less of a spiteful, prideful spirit. Then we will see peace in Ukraine. And not until. So, that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed that and you learned something. God bless you all. And I'll see you lovely people in the next one. Bye now. What a disaster Zelenskyy has turned out to be. He must be the only soldier on earth who doesn't have bags under his eyes, a bruise on his face, not a scratch. Just drop the axe, Zelenskyy, and then you will get peace. So, that's all for now. God bless you all, and I'll see you next time.